Okay, we're back with Beatle Brunch Live on the Allure of the Seas, and we're off to start the program here. I want to welcome to the stage. He's been with us many times. If you were on the cruise 2 years ago on the Allure of the Seas, our guest was there too, and as well as last year in Cancun when we had our 50th anniversary celebration. He's an amazingly talented musician, huge Beatle fan like all of us. For 25 years, he played John Lennon in the band Revolution. Most recently, the past few years, he starred in his own production called Just Imagine. He was featured in the Linda McCartney Story, a CBS television program where he played John Lennon, and he sang for John Lennon as well. And he is a very famous, world-renowned artist of the Beatles and John Lennon. Please welcome Tim Piper.
Hello!
Tim, all the way from LA.
Hello, Beatle Brunchers! Hello, Joe.
Tim, thanks for coming, man. Long way.
Great to have you here.
Oh, right. It's great to have you back on the Allure, and this is something new that we've discovered that we're going to try here, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But, you know, one of the things we all have in common is that many of us are first-generation Beatle fans, but some of us aren't, and so we're going to try to bring people up to date on the history of the Beatles. But tell me your first experience with the Beatles, seeing them, hearing them.
My gosh, I was 7 years old in the second grade in White Plains, New York. I was born in Manhattan, but I was growing up in White Plains, New York, and on a cold February night, as we all know, on the Ed Sullivan Show, here came the future. And I can just remember, you know, black and white TV, adjusting the rabbit ears to get a clear picture. And the next day at school, the whole student body was abuzz about this wonderful new group called the Beatles.
So what did it do for you? Did it make you want to go out the next day and play guitar?
Listen, I was playing cello in the school orchestra. I wanted to play saxophone, but the orchestra director said that the first cellist had graduated and they needed a cello player. Well, chicks don't chase cello players. And when the Beatles came out, I thought, that's it. You know, for Christmas, I want a guitar. And that was the beginning of all that.
So, as we know, the Beatles, and all of us that grew up with them in America and in Canada, they became known to us pretty much in 1964. You had to really be somebody that traveled to England to know that before January, February of '64.
Sure.
But they had been together for like 6, 7 years by then, right? So the time that most groups would have broken up and come together and broken up, the Beatles were really, for us, just getting started.
Right, and they didn't start as the Beatles. For those of you who know, of course, they started as the Quarrymen. Now, John went to Quarry Bank High School, and so he, you know, when he decided to start a group, he called it the Quarrymen. But they weren't playing rock and roll at first. They were playing skiffle music. Now, skiffle music is kind of like American folk music. You don't need proper instruments. A tea-chest bass was a string tied to a wash basin. A washboard was a rhythmic instrument. You know, maybe a guitar, maybe a banjo, and that's what the Quarrymen were. It was more of a rhythmic, where anybody could kind of pick up anything and play along. Lonnie Donegan was one of the big stars of the time. You know, does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight? And Rock Island Line, songs like that. And of course, when Elvis Presley appeared, the Messiah had appeared for John Lennon. And he said, literally, when I saw Elvis, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. In fact, John wanted to be Elvis Presley, right? I think it was Heartbreak Hotel was the song that pulled him in. And then at the Woolton Parish Fete, are we there yet?
Yeah, well, that was where he was playing with his little band.
July 6, 1957. John Lennon is 17 years old. And the Woolton Parish Fete is basically St. Peter's Church, and it's summertime, and they're having a festival. You know, they have the police dogs, and they have parades, and they have baked goods. Well, the Quarrymen were on a lorry, which is a truck, which was so wobbly that John had to sit down not to be knocked over. And they were playing songs, and John's favorite was, of course, rock and roll besides skiffle. So there was a group called the Dell Vikings. And when Paul McCartney saw John play for the first time, he thought, how very clever. This guy, not only does he look super sexy, swaggering without his glasses on, because John was nearsighted and couldn't see. I got to wear his glasses once, by the way.
Wow.
And they're thick as Coke bottles. But he's playing, come on down with me, down into the penitentiary, come on. And Paul's going, that's brilliant. He's just making up his own words. Very clever lad he was. At nighttime, they played one more set at the St. Peter's Church, and that's where Ivan Vaughn, which was a friend of both of them, brought them together for the first time. Of course, Paul noticed that John had a little alcohol on his breath, but John leaned over because Paul was playing a proper guitar. John only was playing a guitar tuned to a G banjo tuning, very different than guitar, because that's what his mother Julia taught him how to play. You know, and she taught him to play Love Me Tender, things like that. Not only could Paul tune a guitar, but he did like a Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock.
20 Flight Rock, sure.
You know, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5, 6, 8, 5 more. 12 song, I'm ready to drag. 15, 4, I'm starting to sag you. I'm too tired to rock. And again, John is thinking, this guy's brilliant. Not only can he tune the guitar, but he knows all the words to the songs that I dig. So eventually, John thought, do I keep this to myself or do I let this guy into the group? And he invited Paul, and about a couple months later, Paul said, yes, I'll join.